It's time to install a new barrel. So, new barrel, new action wrench, let's go have some fun. And this is it. It's pretty simple. I've got a brand new barrel. It needs to go on the action. I've got my action wrench. This one is specifically made for the Black Knights, although it is modular, and I'm going to show you a little bit more about that in a second. But we're going to get up close and personal on the action so you can see how I remove an old barrel and install a new one consistently every time. So let me get you up close. We're going to show you how I do it. First thing, you need to make sure that you have a good barrel vise. Now, I happen to be using the Short Action Customs here. It's my current barrel vise of choice. It is modular, so I can have different inserted shims here, and it is going to close over onto my barrel. Now, there are some other simpler barrel vices out there that definitely do the job as well. But what we want to do first is we want to put our original gun in as it sits with our barrel. We're going to go ahead and clamp this up. Okay, and I'm going to leave this a little loose so you can see. And then what we need to do is we need to tighten this, but at the same time, I need to remove the stock, and I'm going to show you why. First thing we need to do is work with our action wrench. Now, this is the Borden action wrench. He sells them on his website, and it is a modular wrench. And what he does is he labels them. This one says standard, so that would be for most of his actions, including the BRMXD. And then he has this one here, which is labeled BK for the Black Knight. And I'm sure there's going to be other options in the future as well. It is a keyed system, so it's on this hex system, so it locks in real tight. And then it also has a locking detent that you're going to do. So I need to make sure I have the BK one on here, and then I'm going to simply screw this in, and I'm going to tighten it down, and that's going to make for a very solid fit. And I do like this because of the modularity on it. I know so many people that have both Black Knights and BKMX or BRMXDs. BKXDs and BRMXDs would be the two designations there. But anyway, so now we have a really solid, not moving action wrench. Next thing we need to do is make sure that we have enough clearance in the action for everything we're going to do. Now, in my case, you'll notice that my cheek comes up a little higher than my actual bolt hole for the lugs and recess here. So if I were to put or try to put in my action wrench, you can see it's at a weird angle here. Like I can't go any further because it's angled like this and it's jamming. So for me, what I need to do is I need to remove the stock. First thing we need to do is put in our barrel vise. Now in this case, I'm using the Short Action Customs. And what I want to do is I'm going to angle it this way. I'm going to put this in upside down so I can get to my action screws, and I'm going to go ahead and close this up. Now, right now, I don't care too much about tightening down this piece. I'm just gonna kind of snug it, and then we'll deal with it again in a second here. Right now, this is just about holding this so I can get back here and remove it. I leave it loose just in case I need to move this around at all before I get completely set. I'm gonna go ahead and get my torque wrench out. Now, for the action screws, I use the Borka kit, and the Borka kit is kind of unique in that it does not hurt when you unscrew something with it. And so I've got that put together, and then I'm going to go ahead and get my appropriate screw or Allen head here, and I'm just going to loosen this one, and I'm just pulling the two action screws out. And for the back one, I need an extension. And now that I have the two action screws back here loose, I can get my stock off, and I do have a very tight bedding job. So I'm just going to take my time to wiggle it off here. And there we go. So now my stock is off. And I always try to put my stock somewhere safe where it's not going to get hurt. So now that everything is exposed here, I can now get this kind of reset, which what I'm going to want to do is orient this upwards. So I'm going to, again, loosen this up so I can rotate my whole action up. Now I could do this upside down, and I have done this upside down, But for the sake of showing you, it does make it a little easier if I just show you in the vertical orientation here. So we're going to go ahead and get the gun set up so it's properly vertical. And again, I'm going to snug that down in a second, but you can see right now my gun is vertical. I have no problem actually changing barrels with a scope on. I just make sure that I'm very careful and that I go very slowly with it. But obviously if you wanted to be extra safe, you could remove it. Now I do know some people who feel like the jolting motion of, you know, torquing and breaking a barrel off is going to somehow hurt the scope. I have never seen that to be the case personally. And so what we're going to do here now is I've got it where I want it. Now, some people will tell you, well, you need to move it all the way up to the front here. You know, you're going to twist your barrel somehow. Again, I've never seen it. And because I'm dealing with putting my stocks on and off, I do tend to lock mine in a little further out. You could certainly loosen it up and you could move it. I'm going to get it a little bit looser, but you could certainly move it up closer if you wanted to in this respect. And just tighten it down here as well, okay? And what you're gonna wanna do is you're gonna want to really get this thing clamped down as hard as you can, because you're gonna be exerting a lot of force. You know, roughly, depending on the action you have, somewhere between 70 and 100 foot-pounds, okay? And I'm gonna make sure that's tight. And make sure when you have a barrel vise installed that it can take the lateral movement this way. You don't want to put it on a system where you're working against whatever's holding it. So in my case, everything is really, really stable right there. Now we're going to take our action wrench, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to spin this around so you can see the backside of what we're doing. To make things easier, I have gone ahead and pulled the scope off so that you can, I'll show you here. So that way you have a better view into what I'm working on. So what we want to do is we want to take our action wrench. We want to go ahead and put that in, and that's going to make sure that it is nice and tight, and that's what we want. Then we need to make sure that we have the appropriate tool, which is a breaker bar of some kind with the socket that will fit on the end of the action wrench. You never want to use this, your torque wrench, to break loose or loosen in any way. This is designed for tightening only, not for loosening. Easiest way to damage or break a torque wrench. So we'll get into that. But what I'm going to do is I need to get this separated from my action. So let's go ahead and put this on. And then we're going to tighten this up. And we're going to go ahead and give this a break. Okay, and that's just gonna loosen it up. I don't need the wrench after that. So now I'm just going to unscrew. So I'm just gonna unscrew the action here. And I'm just always very careful to keep a hand under at all times so that if something, you know, it happens to unscrew faster than I expect, but I keep a little bit of pressure under here. And in the case that I have my scope on, I do the same thing. I always have this hand, my right hand, holding as I'm turning, right? So it's always this kind of motion so that if something starts to fall or slip, you're in good shape. I also have a rubber mat underneath to catch on the off chance that something falls. But now my action has been separated and I can put that aside. So now we just need to go ahead and put this away. I'm always going to clean this up here and just get any little bits of grease off of it. And then, shameless plug, but I make and sell these tenon covers, and we're gonna go ahead and screw it onto the tenon cover to protect it. So my threads are protected. If I stand it up or lay it down on the ground or something and it runs into something, it's not gonna damage the threads. So now we're gonna go ahead and tighten this up. We're going to loosen this, and we need to remove the barrel now. Okay. And now my old barrel gets put away into my barrel rack. Time for the new barrel. So here is our new barrel. I'm going to go ahead and put it in. we're going to get this tightened up. So it's just a reverse of what we did with just a couple differences, obviously. Now, before I tighten this down, in fact, I'll show you here. My gunsmith will always indicate the barrel. I know a lot of gunsmiths do, but if they don't, you might ask if they can for you. And so my gunsmith will indicate with a punch or a mark right here where top dead center is. And that's both as an indicator for 0 point on my tuner, and so I know which way the barrel's indicated. Oftentimes, wherever your designation is for your chamber will also help you. So that's typically gonna be, if you're looking down the barrel, most gunsmiths are going to indicate this somewhere between 9 o'clock and 11 o'clock on the barrel, so that'll help give you an indication of where top is. But I want to make sure I mount the barrel so that top is up, and that's just gonna make sure that my action orients correctly, just visually for me. Does it really make a difference? No, but I would expect that my action is going to stop pretty close to dead center on top here. So let's get this cranked down. Okay. So the barrel is now in place. Couple little prep items I want to do. First is, no gunsmith is perfect. I never trust that there isn't just a little bit of debris possibly on my tenon threads or on my tuner threads. So I'm just going to wipe those off real quick. The other thing that I want to do is I want to take my action that came off, and I'm going to wipe out the inside here. So I'm just cleaning out the threads inside. Okay. And you can see a little bit of grease and whatnot came out of here. Now, again, in the grand scheme of things, does it matter? If you keep a good action together and stuff, it's probably not the end of the world, but I just like to clean it every time as a matter of good measure. So now that my threads are clean, both on my action and over here on my tenon, I'm going to take just the slightest amount of anti-seize and put it at the beginning of the thread. I know people use different things, and I'm just laying down just the tiniest amount there. And I know some people literally use nothing. I know some people who put down a little bit of oil. They'll put down a little bit of like cutting oil or penetrating oil and lock it down. I've just used this anti-seize for as long as I've been shooting, and it's never let me down, so I just continue using it. Now we're going to thread the action on. This is obviously where not having a scope or anything else on the gun does make life a little bit easier in terms of getting everything lined up, because you do not want to cross thread, obviously. And the downside with anti-seize is it gets on everything it touches. It's a tough one. So you just want to be careful you don't get it on the wrong stuff. So we're going to go ahead and turn this on. Now the next thing that I'm going to show you here is if we look right here, we have the face of the action and we have the shoulder of the barrel, and I always leave a gap where the thread ends at the action. And I'm going to take a napkin now, and I'm just going to kind of floss, if you will, around, just in case any of the anti-seize gets up on the shoulder or face. Again, there's a lot of people that'll comment and say it doesn't really matter, or you should make sure you leave it, completely dry. Don't use the anti-seize, don't use oil. But again, I just like to clean out this little pocket first. That way I have really good metal to metal contact up here. And then we're going to go ahead and just hand tighten it. And you can see that my dot's just slightly off center. So it's really, really close to being where top dead center would be for the action being timed up. And I'm going to go ahead and turn and crank this down again. So now we're not moving. And now the opposite is what's going to happen. We're going to go ahead and put the action wrench back in. Okay. And then what we need to do is we need to set our torque wrench. Now you'll want to contact your action manufacturer to see what the nominal setting is. In Borden's case, it's 75 or roughly 75. And so that's where I like to set it. The other thing is anytime you use a torque wrench, make sure you back it off every time. So I always go all the way back to 0, and then I'm going to go up here to 75 with my soon to fail me eyes here. 70, where are we? 75, okay. So there's 75 right there. Okay, so we're on 75. And then I'm just going to tighten this so it doesn't slip at all. And we're going to go ahead and now take our socket off of the breaker bar we had. And we're going to go ahead and put that on. Now let me bring this back over so you can see a little bit better. But now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and put this on. And we're just going to, now I tend to support underneath right here at the head. And we're just going to, right there, that's it. Now, some people will want to, you know, hit it one more time. I honestly don't think it makes a difference, you know, up or down as far as that goes. I do tend to hit it twice just out of habit, but now our action is securely on and it's not going to go anywhere. The last thing we need to do is go ahead and, again, I know I wiped this, but just make sure that the tuner threads are clean, and we're going to do the same thing with our tuner. So I'm going to go ahead, however your tuner's made, this is the Cortina, but I'm just going to, we'll give it a wipe down real quick. And it has a little bit of anti-seize in it as well. So we're going to clean this out. Okay. I just like restarting, you know, on a fresh setup. And same thing, I'm going to put just the tiniest amount of anti-seize on here. Okay. And then we are going to go ahead and put this on. And where my indicator is up here at 0 is just going to be my 0 point. Now it doesn't really matter. I just know that what I want to do is I just want to get it to where whatever rotation gets me flush with the barrel and to 0 on the indicator here is where my 0 point is going to be on the tuner. So there we go. We now have a action on a brand new barrel. Now what I would want to do lastly here is go ahead and loosen this up. Okay, and then we're just going to rotate this, and I'm going to pull the barrel out to give it some room because we're going to need to put the action on. Okay. Now I don't have a super polished barrel. I probably manhandle my barrels more than some people. If you have a really polished barrel, you'll obviously want to be a little more careful than I am, but to be honest, I just don't care if my barrel has scratches on it. We now have our stock that needs to go on. Again, I'm just going to give it a quick wipe, and yes, I just dropped a screw. So just in case there's any moisture or penetrating oil that might have gotten into your action, you should be checking this regularly anyway, but I really don't have anything. I had just the tiniest amount right up there, but not the end of the world. And we're also going to want to just wipe down our action and just make sure that there's nothing weird on it. Again, it's just good maintenance. We're going to put our stock on. Okay. And now we're just going to go the opposite way, and we're just going to get this hand tight here. We're going to hand tight this. Okay. Let's do the back one again. We're just going to get it hand tight. And now we are going to set these at 55, which is where I had it. So I set my action screws at 85 inch-pounds. I'm now going to torque, torque, and actually, you know what? I did that backwards to how I normally do it. I wasn't thinking. But usually I'm going to snug these down, and then I am going to torque the back one first, and then I come to the front. And I will hit it twice. I know for all the engineers out there or mechanics, they're going to tell me that this is the wrong thing to do, but I do hit it twice just because. And that's it. I now have my gun ready to go. Throw my scope back on it. It's just that easy. Whether it's the action wrench, torque wrench, the bench vise, the barrel vise, when you have the right tools, changing a barrel is easy. It's consistent. All of my barrels go on exactly the same way. I can pull off a barrel, put a new barrel on, and then, you know, just swap in between barrels without an issue because I'm confident in what my settings are. One last thing I should note is that regarding any of the settings, whether it's my action screws, whether it's my barrel torque, I have notes for each action, what the torque range is that I set for, whether it's the scope rings, the scope base, the action screws. Everything has a torque setting that I have documented so that I am incredibly consistent. While I might think I can remember every time, there are times where, for whatever reason, I just want to make sure I'm doing it right, and having those notes is critical. With that, I do hope that this helps you shoot better, and ultimately, that's what I make these videos for. So get out and shoot, have some fun, and we will talk later.